Greetings, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. There was so much news going on today. So much craziness behind the scenes that I haven't had a chance to even cover on the channel, and it is almost 1 a.m. and by the time this video hits my channel, I think it will be 1 a.m. Central Standard Time. And yet, I have only touched on this issue for this video. But it's a really important issue. The news has been so heavy, of course, in the world and the news today in the game. It's a crazy news day because it was new content day, which normally new content is its own news by itself, but it was like new content day combined with a bunch of other announcements. Almost too much to keep track of. That's why Rich the Man, a true, kind-hearted, great dude, who I've only had the privilege of talking to once, but I really hope I can interview him for the channel again at some point. It would be an amazing interview, and I think the community would really benefit from his wisdom. That's why his channel is so important, because he can take 7 or 8 issues, talk about them for 10, 15 minutes, and then just do a really thorough job of going through them. Whereas I kind of take a bite off the apple, but I don't eat the whole apple. Might be a weird analogy. I first heard that analogy in grad school, believe it or not. So the MCOC team starts out greeting summoners. Look, I say greetings, YouTube. I feel like they're copying me a little bit. I feel a little triggered, but we'll keep going. We will be delaying the launch of our new champion attributes, formerly called the champion rating system, for a short period of time. This means that Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock, and Omega Sentinel will not be a part of this new approach to balancing champions. We were initially ready to launch the system this month with a set of approximately 30 champions. Although, look, they said that old champions wouldn't be touched, so I'm a bit confused how 30 champions are going to be part of this when there's only 2 champions that are new starting in March. You'd think it would just be with 2 champions, right? With their attributes added to their champion spotlights, but found that the system will be more useful to players with a larger group of champions to compare to. All right, let's stop and just talk about that paragraph for a moment. That system makes no sense to me. You're saying that the community will benefit if people's rosters are larger for this comparison, so you're going to wait for 100 champions instead of 30? Like, nothing about that to me makes sense. Who's asking for this? Nobody's asking for this. And I know that they have tried to assure us that old champions wouldn't be touched, but if you're going to add their attributes to champion spotlights, you're going to have to talk about older champions, because, again, we only have 2 new champions starting with this era of the game, and that's the 2 new champions that were discussed above for the month of March. So I just don't understand the idea that the system will be more useful to players with a larger group of champions to compare to, because several of you, like myself, who've been playing the game for years, have huge rosters already. So if you want to just compare it, I mean, they're there. But I'm still, for the record, fully against any system that has a chance to nerf any champion released. If you're going to buff them, fine, I'm all for it. But any nerf, no. And Kabam still tries to make the argument that Cole Obsidian and Namor are just as valuable in a lot of ways than they were before the nerf. That is tone deaf and, quite frankly, a lie. We aim to have the system launch when we are able to display attributes for approximately 100 champions. Again, I think this is stupid. You can look forward to more information about champion attributes and the launch timing as we move closer to a new launch date. Okay, that post, as read so far in this message, would be news by itself. But at the very bottom of this post is the heart of this video. It's the reason why I'm making this. It is laughably bizarre and also a bit infuriating if you have the champion in question that we think it is. Additionally, we regret to inform you, anytime Kabam says we regret to inform you, it's going to be bad news, that due to current real-world events, we will be pulling a champion. And at first, I read this and I'm like, from the game? We had planned an update for next month. Oh, so the champion's going to stay in the game? You're just not going to improve him or her? What? Seriously, what? Like, what? I can't think of even an analogy for that, which my job as a journalism professor is to come up with analogies in some ways. So that's kind of a first for me. But the only way this would make sense is if they say, like, literally canceling a champion. And we'll discuss the theories behind that in a second. But to say we'll keep the champion in it, we're just not going to make them better because of real world events? What? We do not feel that celebrating this champion at this time is appropriate and is insensitive. So instead of celebrating the champion, we'll just ignore him. Gamora will be the only champion to receive an update in April. Is that like our third update? And we'll have updated animations as well. I don't care if you've been sleeping under a rock. Everybody's got to know what's going on right now in Ukraine due to Russia, right? I'm not going to go into details about it. I don't even know how much YouTubers can talk about it. Although there are billions of news stories about this every day that are somehow making ad revenue. But regardless, there were really two theories that came into my inbox when this post hit my inbox, thanks to Brian Shadowstrike, and specifically for this image, Top Dog 23. There's Red Skull, who's like the runner-up nominee, but I think if we're just kind of being obvious with the design of the champion, going all the way back to the era of which this is in question, it's the dad bod himself, Red Guardian. I just can't imagine. Like, the reaction from the community would be the same reaction that Nebula was being buffed. Wait, that's who you're buffing? Now, I'm guessing there'd be a lot of excitement too, because a lot of you, for prestige reasons, but especially for just overall utility reasons, already have a 5-star Red Guardian at max rank, or at least rank 4, a 6-star at rank 2, or maybe rank 3, who knows, maybe rank 4. Like, I feel like there'd be more of a pushback because other champions need a buff more, like OG Spider-Man, for example, then Red Guardian needs one. But once you wrap your mind around it, you'd be like, okay, cool. I'm sure, look, some people might say this is insensitive, but I don't think that would be the majority of the community. I just can't imagine that. Maybe I'm just not in tuned to that. But to me, if you're making the argument that a champion shouldn't improve, you're making the argument the champion shouldn't exist. And maybe they're worried about what they would have to give in return for taking the champion out of the game. I just find this to be a bizarre overreaction to the worst potential global war we've seen since World War II. Like, they're so worried about being insensitive that they're having it carry over into a mobile game with a champion that people use every day. If they were making the argument that they were pulling the champion and giving a bunch of compensation, even though I wouldn't agree with it, I would at least understand the logic, but I don't understand the logic of this at all. I just don't. And you can say that I'm being too insensitive. You should say that he should be canceled. You should say Kabam's doing the right thing. You're free to make that opinion. But I just don't understand, if you're making that argument, how you're then saying, but it's cool for the champion to be in the game and look the way they do. Who's playing with Red Guardian being like, man, this is really hurting the world right now, playing that guy in a mobile game, and look at him. It's just terrible that he's designed this way. He's a relic of his time period in a universe that was created before the current events of the world. That's my biggest frustration with us human beings right now. Like, you can't add 2022 context to 1942. I know if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, but like, different time periods have different social standards. 2022 is going to have completely different social standards than 2042, and rightfully so. But to say it's insensitive, what? I don't get it. And sorry if this rant seemed like it was insensitive to some of you people. I get why Kabam is cautious about this, but I think it's an overreaction. If you're going to keep the champion in him and just not make him better, it's the wrong decision.